G'day guys, and just welcome back to another video. I thought I might just do a bit of a quick movie review. It's a nice sort of quick one. A little bit of sort of been talking about this film recently, so I thought I might I bought it and I sort of might give a bit of my opinions on it. You can probably tell by the title. It's going to do Red State by Kevin Smith. I haven't sort of seen many of his films. I think I've seen. Pretty sure I watched the original Clerks and bits and pieces. I think it's either Dogma or what's the other one? Chasing Amy. I think it might have been. So I'm not necessarily necessarily familiar with his work, I guess. But I have heard this is a lot sort of different to his sort of style. I think the last week before this was Cop Out, which I think was a bit of a. I haven't seen it, but it's supposed to be a bit of a pretty big flop. Apparently, a lot of critics didn't seem to like it. So I think some ways I think he was trying to sort of prove that he still had it, and I think he's had a really good effort at trying to make a good sort of film. I think it says on the front. Quentin Tarantino loved it. So, but yeah, as before, I didn't sort of know much about the film, and I just heard that a lot of people gave a fairly positive sort of review. So I thought I might just do a bit of a blind buy and sort of buy it and give it a bit of a watch. It's been classed as like a horror movie, but it's not really a horror movie. Well, I think Kevin Smith said it was like an American horror movie, which I suppose it is an American horror movie because it's about the horrors of America and what sort of happens, I suppose, and things that perhaps aren't necessarily talked about a lot, I suppose. A lot of violence and a lot of things we don't perhaps necessarily hear about and stuff like that. Actually, it's a bit of a sort of mishmash. It's got sort of keeps changing direction all the time. Sort of starts as like a teen sort of movie, I suppose, with these sort of young boys that trying to get laid and sort of answer an ad in the, I don't know, I think it's like on the phone, like a internet type thing, and go and meet this girl. We're born for sex sort of thing, and I think that's sort of where it's going. And then, but they eventually sort of get captured and get locked in cages and like a Christian. It's like a Christianity religious group, a bit of an extremist type one, and it's very sort of anti-gay and very sort of stuck in their beliefs and scripture, and so I think that's sort of was going to go a bit of like I thought it was going to be like a sort of torture porn type thing, but it wasn't. It sort of then went on to another direction of sort of a siege sort of fight out, with lots of auto machine guns and stuff like that, and then it's another direction at the end. It sort of changes, and I won't sort of spoil what happens at the end, but there's definitely lots of different directions and different things. And I think Kevin Smith is a really good writer. I think the whole premise behind it and some of the ideas I just found really sort of interesting, and because a lot of things I take a bit of interest in, things like this sort of American sort of religion and American government and censorship and the way the government's trying to control us all, censoring the internet and all this sort of stuff, and privacy issues with them trying to spy on us and stuff like that. So the whole sort of idea behind it was actually quite interesting. But yeah, I appreciated it. I thought it was a really good premise, and in some ways it was a really well made film. Some of the action shots are really good, and sort of kind of shaky cam, I suppose. Some of those sort of fast action scenes were actually quite good, and had some really good acting in it. And I think Michael Parks is like the preacher. He was really good and really sort of intense, and I think it was some ways it was really sort of like, it wasn't necessarily over the top with lots of action and CGI, and it was sort of fairly sort of kind of solid type sort of filmmaking, very sort of simple and to the point, and I suppose with some respects anyway. But I just sort of found it, and I have heard that as before, Kevin Smith is a really good writer, and I think even said himself he's not a very good director, which I think was sort of where lets the film down a bit. I think if he sort of had someone with him, perhaps sort of giving him a few pointers, like a bit of a, I don't know, someone that's sort of been making films for years and years, and just to give ideas and perhaps changing things, doing it this way, this might be a bit better and stuff. Because I sort of found the film to be very sort of, the issues behind it were very sort of serious issues about religion and homosexuality and censorship. So it was really sort of it's kind of like a really sort of serious type topic, and in some ways, Kevin Smith, he it was very, I don't know, I just found the whole direction was very sort of comical, and I couldn't sort of find it serious. I just found it a bit sort of, I don't know, surreal and a bit sort of unrealistic, and just, I don't know, I suppose that was perhaps his sort of style, I guess. And I did sort of find it a bit sort of boring too. It's just like it was I sort of urged to sort of keep turning it off because I just wasn't really interested in it. Like it's like a 20-minute, I think it's about a 20-minute sort of speech, sort of a sermon done by Michael Parks, and that was, I really did sort of find that a bit boring. And it just didn't sort of grasp me as much as it should have done. But just as far as it's got, you know, fine acting performances in it, and it should be engrossing, I suppose. But for some reason, I just couldn't sort of get into the premise. And I thought I did sort of find some of the especially the sort of beginning of the film, some of the sort of setups of the things sort of happen on purpose. They're very sort of things are set up, you know, and it's sort of a bit too obvious, I think, in some sort of ways. And it's very much a film that doesn't sort of necessarily have like a sort of a hero. It's sort of all the groups and people are all sort of portraying very sort of negative type light. I mean, you've got the extremist type, you know, Christian religion they're all nuts, and you know, and then you've got the governments, you know, sort of trying to cover things up, and you know, people just sort of, you know, not really caring about other people, I suppose, in some sort of respects, and I guess it's very much of a, you know, sort of, you know, because you know, they could have sort of changed it. They didn't necessarily need to be a Christianity type religion. It could have been like a Muslim, you know, religion, which it would have sort of had the same sort of effect. I mean, that's you know, sort of like labelling Muslims as all sort of terrorists, and you know, there's sort of been things in the American governments, you know, sort of, you know, recent laws have been passed that if you're sort of deemed to be a terrorist, then they pretty much once they label you a terrorist, that means they can do pretty much anything to you. They can sort of lock you up in Guantanamo Bay, you know, for indefinite without sort of being charged, or you know, things like that, and just sort of this, I don't know, I guess the word of, you know, terrorist. Once you're terrorist, you know, you basically have no rights. So yeah, I didn't sort of, yeah, I can appreciate it. I can sort of see a lot of people, you know, really do love it, because in some ways it is reasonably a good film. It had some great ideas and something we've not necessarily sort of seen before. All these sort of ideas brought together, and I just think perhaps the execution wasn't necessarily all that good. I also sort of found it really sort of short too. I suppose not necessarily a problem, I suppose, but I was sort of wanted to sort of see a bit more sort of thing. It sort of left on a bit of a, I don't know, not necessarily a cliffhanger, I suppose, but it sort of ended, and I thought I sort of wanted to do a little bit more, and you know, I sort of wanted to know what was going to happen next with it. But I definitely recommend it. It's definitely worth a watch, I think. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's just a quick sort of review just of the movie. Just, you know, movie I sort of watched. I think it was yesterday. So yeah, if you want to, I'm sure a lot of people have already sort of seen this one. If you want to perhaps leave some comments down below what you thought of the movie, if you sort of disagree with me or whatever. Yeah, so that's it. Cheers. Bye.